All right, guys, we're going to be taking a look today at basically how to finish a drawing. So we're going to be putting all of the different steps together in this particular drawing. And as you can see there, I've got a couple of title cards that'll pop up and show you the various stages of the drawing that I get to. Um, and just going to be kind of talking about how I approach shading and a pretty good tried and true method for doing so. So we'll walk through it and then we'll talk about the overall concept of this particular exercise. So I'm working with the reference photo of the Hulk figure again, or the Hulk sculpture, and I'm starting with just the get to the ground skill that we talked about. And here you get to see me totally jack up and mess up trying to draw the legs like 3 or 4 times until I think this time I finally settled on something. All right. So the first thing you're going to start with is just doing the get to the ground of the entire subject that you're working with. And then you're going to work through, and you're actually going to pick not the entire subject, but a section of it, what we're going to call a vertical slice, even though in this particular case, I'm using a horizontal slice. And you're going to take that particular part of the image or of your subject, and that's what you're going to work up to a good quality finish. So what you see me working on here is the block in and just establishing where all of the lights and darks are in the image, doing just a little bit of cleanup, trying to make sure the shapes that I have are accurate. Now, after I set up the block in, a good step from that point is to usually go in and add in all of your really dark darks, your core shadows, and any cast shadows that might be popping up on the piece. Now, you'll notice that when you look at a subject, all of the value or all of the shadow areas aren't the same value. Some are darker and some are lighter. So this step is really important because you can go back into those broader areas that you've established as shadow, and you can pick out the areas that you want to really darken down and add some weight to. It's important here to make sure that you layer, right? Especially if you're working in pencil. Graphite can get really shiny when you work with it, especially if you just kind of go ham and you lay it all down in one shot. It can create a really shiny, very distracting surface. So whenever I work with graphite, I'm always very careful to try and build it up slow and take my time. All right, so kind of moving into the last half of the drawing here, we've set up the overall composition. We've established where all the light and dark areas are. We've built up our darkest shadow areas. And now we're going to build the halftones and the midtones. So this is really where the bulk of your careful shading work is going to happen. We're going to go in into all those light areas, and we're going to start to add in those nice soft gradations, those soft fades of value where the form starts to round. And this is what really will start to make your drawings look 3D. But you also need to make sure you keep a really light hand as you're working, because this can get out of control on you fast. And that's what I'm doing here, is just working through, looking at all the details, taking time to add things in, and just build up all of those subtle halftones throughout the image. At some point in here, I decided that after building up everything on the figure itself, I was going to go ahead and shade the background down as well, just because I thought it looked a little bit better to have the background shaded as opposed to leaving it just the white of the page. It gave it just a little bit more contrast. Something else that I like to do is sometimes use an eraser to pick out the very brightest areas, the highlight areas of the drawing. All right, so we're coming up to the finishing stages of this particular drawing. So my plan was to go back through and just wrap everything up, fine tune it, add details, and all of that, which is your typical finishing stage, when you start to add all of that stuff in. So just going through, darkening up the background, trying to even out the graphite and smooth things over. And right around here, the phone rang. And of all places, it was Caesar Rodney calling to do the all call, and it jacked up the rest of the recording. So here's a finished image of how the drawing turned out. Sorry I didn't have the last bit of footage for you, but hopefully you get the idea at this point. All right, guys, till next time. Peace.